Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be unpacking the question of, are they avoidant or just not that into you? Which is a question that I get a lot from anxiously attached people who are dating someone who maybe is giving them mixed signals and they're trying to figure out, should I keep pursuing? Should I keep trying to understand what's going on? Or is the writing on the wall here and I should just cut my losses and move on? For those of you who don't know me, my name's Stephanie Rigg. I'm a relationship coach and I'm host of the On Attachment podcast, which is the world's leading podcast on how attachment shapes the way we live and love. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down this question of, are they avoidant or just not that into me? So I'm going to be sharing some common misconceptions about how avoidant attachment shows up in the early dating context. I'm going to be sharing some things to think about if you're anxiously attached and you notice you often go into this pattern of trying to figure someone out when you're in that early dating process and how that can maybe play into some of your patterns of self-abandonment. And I'm also going to give you some things to focus on that are maybe more useful than this question of, are they avoidant or just not that into me, so that you can stay grounded in dating, so that you can not spin out into self-doubt and overthinking and ruminating, because we know that that can often lead us into patterns that we don't want to be in. Okay, so let's talk about how avoidant attachment shows up in early dating. Now, I think this is a really common misconception because a lot of people think that people who are avoidant from the get-go, in the sense of they're distant and aloof and confusing and they send mixed messages. And I actually think that is not true in the vast majority of cases, because what you need to remember about attachment more broadly, but specifically avoidant attachment in this case, is that attachment patterns are triggered by stress, relational stress specifically. So if we're looking at someone with avoidant attachment who has fears around intimacy, loss of self, loss of autonomy, being engulfed by someone, those fears are usually not going to be triggered from day one, meaning the avoidant attached person is not going to be exhibiting their avoidant traits, being their protective mechanisms, on day one. And a lot of the time, the avoidant person will be as excited and hopeful and optimistic about a connection that they're interested in as anyone else would be. I think a lot of the internet casts this as like love bombing, followed by some sort of withdrawal, as if it was all some carefully planned way to manipulate and destroy someone. I just don't think that's true. I think that avoidant folks have that same optimism that anyone else does. And so when they connect and they're excited, they are usually really enthusiastic. That's why you might get someone who shows up and is really responsive and they're messaging you a lot and they're making plans. And it's only later, once the relationship starts to become a little more committed, when there starts to be more by way of expectations and pressure and emotional dependency and reliance, that the avoidant person gets brought into contact with their deeper wounds and fears, and that can trigger their protective responses that we all know as kind of avoidant attachment behaviors. So all of that to say, someone who is avoidant, who's interested in you, will generally show that they're interested in you, and oftentimes will actually be the active pursuer in early dating. And just to reiterate, that's not because they have some agenda of bait and switch and I'm going to make them fall in love with me and then I'm going to cast them aside. I really believe that in most cases that's because they too are feeling really good about the relationship, just because they haven't yet been triggered. So if you're asking this question of like, are they avoidant or just not that into me, and this is someone who you've just connected with, remember that avoidant people will probably still show strong signs of interest and pursuit if they are really interested in someone in early dating. So the next piece that I want to talk about is flipping over to the anxious side, the person asking the question, and digging in a little into, what's this really about for me? And this is a bit of a hard pill to swallow, but for anxiously attached people, when we're met with someone's indifference or confusing behavior, or someone not putting in much effort, someone leaving us guessing, a lot of the time our instinct is to push harder, to try and prove ourselves, to try and get them to want us. It's almost like we roll our sleeves up and say challenge accepted when someone isn't treating us the way we want them to. And that can often go back to our earliest blueprints for love as anxiously attached people around inconsistency, which is at the heart of a lot of anxious attachment, this sense of sometimes you're there when I need you, sometimes you're not. It feels so good when we're connected, but I can't trust in that connection. I can't rely on that connection being there. And so I have to hold on really tight. I won't let it go. And because that pattern of inconsistency really trains us into hypervigilance, it trains us into anxiety, into information gathering. When someone's being hot and cold or inconsistent in early dating, that sort of lights up our system in really familiar ways, even if we don't realize it. And so I think the work for anxiously attached people here is to step back from this question, recognizing like, If I've just connected with someone or I'm in the early dating phase and I'm already asking, are they avoidant or just not that into me? Maybe it doesn't matter what the answer is, because if you're sitting in that seat of not knowing whether someone wants you, of feeling like, is there some sort of psychological explanation for the way they're treating me, or do they just not like me? Query whether that's a connection that you want to pursue. And I know that that's a really hard one to sit with, but we do have to look at our part in perpetuating relationship patterns that we actually are wanting to move away from. And I think for anxious folks, this is a big one. Continuing to push and pursue in the face of someone who is leaving us wondering, do they even like me? I really tell my clients and students, like, raise the bar. We want to raise the bar so far above this. And I say that when people ask me, is my partner narcissistic or just avoidant? Or all of these other questions that are essentially saying, is there some explanation for this behavior that's causing me pain? And almost the subtext of that is, if I can put a label on it, then maybe I can solve it and I can make them change so that I don't have to honor myself by maybe walking away or finding something that's more aligned, finding something that feels more mutual and reciprocal. So that's the big piece for anxiously attached people. And the little bit that I want to leave you with is, instead of asking this question of, is someone avoidant or just not that into me? What I want you to focus on is instead identifying your relationship values. So what do I actually want in a partner, in a relationship? How do I want to feel? Because most people who I work with do not know the answer to that question. All they want is to be chosen by someone. And that is a really bad benchmark to be taking into dating, because it makes us very prone to just chasing after people who give us any sort of attention. And then when that attention goes away, we go into overdrive trying to get it back, even if that person is not a great fit for us, even if the relationship is a bit of a dead end. We get so hooked in to that intermittent reinforcement of trying to get someone's attention and approval. And that really leads us down a rabbit hole. So what I want you to do is step back from all of that. And if you're dating at the moment and you're feeling like you keep going on these roller coasters of chasing after people who are maybe unavailable, maybe not that interested in you, step back and go, how do I want to feel in relationships? What are the standards that I'm going to set for myself? What will I not tolerate? What am I not available for? And get really clear on the answer to those questions, because then you have something to measure against when you are dating, when you're pursuing a connection. And that allows you to go, if you're dating someone and you find yourself asking these questions of like, do they even like me? You can step back and go, you know what? If I'm asking the question, then that's probably a sign that something's not right here, or I need to have a conversation. I need to be more direct, because doing that thing I do where I start internalizing and start Googling and start trying to find all the answers to explain away someone's behavior that isn't feeling good, that's my part in the pattern, and that's what I need to work on shifting. So get really clear around like what you're available for, what you're not, what you want to feel in relationships, and then start honoring yourself by actually acting in accordance with those values. If you're nodding along and realizing that this is part of your work, I would love for you to check out my new free training, How to Heal Anxious Attachment and Finally Feel Secure in Life and Love. I share about my own journey with anxious attachment, as well as the exact framework that I've taught to thousands of people to heal from anxious attachment and feel more secure within themselves. So you can register for that totally for free. The link is underneath. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, guys.